The honourable member Calgary-Fish Creek, followed by Red Deer North.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, we've asked dozens of questions about the financial practices of AHS. $250 million here, $1 billion there, and every time the answers are the same. They were approved under the former AHS board, and that board has been fired. AHS has an audit and financial committee that reviews these contracts. Well, it turns out that the chair of the committee is in a bind. He sat on the former AHS board before he was fired last June, the same board that's apparently to blame in the first place. How can members of the former board be both the cause of the problem and the solution?
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, what an invention. Whoever said that the former board was the cause of a problem? In fact, if one looks at the $1 billion worth of sole source contracts that are so nefarious, one will find that $900 million of those $1 billion was spent on cataract surgery and long-term care. Whoa. Hiring the services that Albertans need and want so that they can get timely access to service, they can get appropriate long-term care, they can get the things they need for a quality of life. And interestingly enough, those contracts adhere to the policy. A procurement policy that was in place, a procurement policy that the Auditor General reviewed, and a new procurement practice policy.
First supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's his health minister that made the comment last week. You better read your briefing notes again. Given that the AHS Audit and Finance Committee has the power to conduct or authorize investigations into any matter within the scope of its responsibilities and the power to retain independent counsel and forensic accountants to assist in the investigation, will the Premier issue a ministerial directive ordering the committee to investigate the consulting and sole source contracts awarded by AHS?
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, if this honourable member had been paying attention, she would know that there's been a sequence of activities by the Auditor General over the years looking exactly at the Alberta Health Services sole source contract process, making recommendations with respect to that, doing a sampling, as I mentioned in the House previously, with respect to it and finding, in fact, that the contracts were being awarded in accordance with the policy, and continuing to make recommendations with respect to how they should proceed. And in fact, as a result, I presume, of much of that work, there's been a new policy put in place effective April 1st by the AHS Executive called the Procurement Business Practices Policy and Non-Competitive Procurement Procedure.
Thank you. Time is up. I'm sorry. Let's go on. Final supplemental.
Premier, I'd had a lot of hopes on you, but gee willikers. Given that as a result of all efforts to expose the waste and questionable contracting practice at AHS, a spokesperson from AHS is now considering posting all contracts online to show greater accountability to taxpayers. Will the Premier tell AHS to post those before we leave this session period?
Gee willikers.
Gee willikers.
Golly. Just almost speechless with that. But the reality, Mr. Speaker, is that Alberta Health Services is providing health services to Albertans on a daily basis. Can we do a better job? Absolutely. We strive every day to do a better job for Albertans. But are we providing through Alberta Health Services some of the best health services in the country? Absolutely. And on so many measures, it is true. Albertans are well served.